Welcome to Turn a Page, the official comic book club for Nerd Initiative. Each week, the NI Bullpen will be covering the world of comics, talking to creators, deep diving into some fantastic stories, and much more. Now let's hand it over to the team and turn a page.
And what is going on, everyone? It is Tuesday night, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and you are tuned in for another edition of Turn a Page, the official comic book club for Nerd Initiative. My name is Ken M. You know me as the host of the ODPH podcast. I'm also Nerd Initiative Editor-in-Chief. Conspicuous by his absence is my co-host Tom, who is unfortunately on assignment tonight, so he could not be here. But fear not, because we have a great fill-in host here. You know him as the guy in the chair on each and every Turn a Page. He's also the host of Wrestling Night Live every Thursday night, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Nerd Initiative YouTube. And he is one of the members of the Nerd Initiative Comics Bullpen. Please give a warm welcome to the one and only Rich.
That is right. I am back on the TaP. And for once, not being the guy in the chair, although I'm still doing those duties as you see me typing. However, more importantly than that, it is not a wrestling episode. So I'm very excited about this.
Oh, yes, indeed, because we have a fantastic issue to talk about hitting stores next week, December 4th, at your LCS, because the world of Thundercats got turned upside down with a one shot that we have been buzzing about backstage here, and you need to talk about it. And we are fortunate enough to have the writer of this book on the air right now to talk to you about it. You know his work from such books as Brave and the Bold, New Mutants, Ghost Rider, just to name a few. Please give a warm welcome to the one and only Ed Brisson. Ed, what is going on?
Hey guys, not too much. You might be able to hear my dog going nuts. You might not have wrestling tonight, but I've got dog fighting going on behind me here.
Awesome.
Apparently, so I apologize for that in advance.
Oh, no worries.
Worst case scenario, we can call all the action.
Perfect.
Yes, we can definitely do some commentating, because there's a lot to be commentating about with the book that we were alluding to as well, dropping next week, and that is Thundercats Apex by Dynamite Comics. So if you haven't been checking out the Thundercats series, it's been phenomenal work over there. And this one shot is going to have everybody talking next week at the shop. So Ed, why don't we start off? How did you get involved with this? Where did we get started?
I got involved. Like I wish there was a more exciting story to it, but Nate, the editor, just phoned me up to ask me if I'd want to step in and write a Thundercats one shot. And that's kind of just where it went. Before that had been pestering Declan about the whole universe stuff, because I'm a big Silverhawks fan as well. And so when I found that they had Thundercats, I kept pestering him about when they were getting Silverhawks. And initially that's what I thought Nate was calling me about, or what I hoped. But yeah, he just called me, offered it to me. He kind of, Declan and he had a rough idea of where they needed the story to go. They had who the character was and all that sort of stuff. And it was a cool premise, so I hopped on board.
Oh, sometimes when it's that simple, it just goes that way too. And especially with the work that Declan Shelby and the team have been doing over there. Really bringing back the Thundercats in a monster way, because I know it kind of ties in ironically with the Omnibus Kickstarter campaign, which we have the links in the liner notes for this podcast for, because Thundercats and comics have been so synonymous, and to see them come back in this manner, it's been truly awesome as a fan to see.
Yeah, it's been really cool to be part of it, to be honest.
Yeah, I've been along for the ride because for Nerd Initiative, peek behind the curtain, I write the reviews for Thundercats. So it was kind of awesome when we found out you were coming on. Of course, not knowing too much before, we thankfully have been able to read it. So we're going to talk spoiler free, because I don't want to spoil anything for this book, because
Perfect.
I'm going to say this right now, unapologetic as a Thundercats fan my whole life, but it was my favorite cartoon as a child growing up. I am still a huge Thundercats fan. I'm reading this book and I'm catching on real early to what's going on. And I'm like, I don't know where this is or how this is. And I'm going to try to be real spoiler free, because obviously we don't want to give it away, but it reminds, of course, me of a certain famous character from another company had a run in something, and then mix in another character that in the series so far we haven't seen too much of. So you got to play in a really cool toy box. So spoiler free wise, how did it feel, or how would you come into doing Thundercats Apex?
Like I said, Nate called me. I think the vibe that they wanted for the book they had this sort of for the character, he's kind of just drifter type. And I'd written Old Man Logan for 30 some odd issues, between Old Man Logan and then Dead Man Logan. And so I think they wanted some of that sort of feel to the book, which is, it's definitely, it's got this sort of Western / post-apoc kind of vibe to it, which is the kind of stuff I love. And yeah, that's basically it. There was, it's really tough to not get into the spoiler end of things. We know that like Apex is on a mission. He's after something in particular. He has his reasons, which we don't know. He obviously has a history with the Thundercats, which we've seen already in the mainline Thundercats book. And so it was just cool to sort of like do this book where we can seed this out, where we can sort of, put some mysteries to bed, I think, show a few things, but also just kind of really like by the more questions we answer, I think the more questions we sort of reveal. So yeah, I don't know. That's
it's so hard to not do spoilers. Because even that's why I danced around, even though I didn't want to mention, because it's like, okay, I know you did Old Man Logan. I didn't want to mention that name because I was like, I don't know. So yes, we'll go with it's very in that vein, and you'll be surprised. And that's part of the reason why, if we're talking in circles, I want everybody to feel how I felt reading it. Because as a fan, like I said, as I started reading the issue, I went, okay, I kind of see, but then you're kind of like trying to figure out where it places, what time is it, and then when you get to the end of the book and you get some of that unraveled for you, and it's like, you get kind of like the clear cut, not saying everything, because there's still some mysteries, obviously we're going to find out, but like, once you get to that point, you're like, oh, wow, this is awesome. This is one of the best reveals that I've read in comics in a long time. And there's some really great ones recently too.
Well, I appreciate that for sure. It's a tough one to like kind of keep wraps on.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, no, it definitely, like I say, Rich and I have had the pleasure of reading this, and like I say, this book is one that fans are going to be talking about next week, and especially just even looking at the cover about this too, and seeing the design of Apex. And I mean, when you're sitting there and teaming up with Rafa Labasco for this, like when you're going over the designs for it, was there any kind of like certain motif you want to go with it, like a certain look, or it was just kind of like, let him, come up with this idea just based off like where you're going with the story?
So the initial design for Apex came from Drew and Declan, because he appeared in their book first. So when I came onto the book, when Rafa came onto the book, that was already there. The thing that wasn't there was what Apex looks like under the hood.
Okay.
They hadn't sort of nailed that down. And that's something that I sort of had this moment where I had this idea for what I think he thought he should look like. And I did a really bad Photoshop job by taking some other art and mashing it together and then drawing over it. And I sent it to Nate and Declan. I'm like, this is what he looks like under the hood. And thankfully they dug it. Declan took it and refined it a little bit, and then we sent it off to Rafa while he was drawing the issue, and he kind of refined a little bit further still. So that was kind of the process of what Apex looks like fully. We had it was kind of like all hands on deck doing it. Like Drew, Declan, Nate, myself, and then Rafa.
Okay. And especially too, like, jumping in there, I mean, the conversation is just keeping everybody on the same page about it. And just, because like where this story goes, like how vital is it just to have that communication going back and forth? And was there ever any kind of pushback of what you wanted to do?
I don't think there was like minimal pushback on a couple of things, but only in the sense that I think there was one moment that I was writing the book that was going to step on something that Declan was about to do in his book. But that's like normal when you're working in any sort of publishing line where you have a few books. You got to kind of make sure that you're staying out of each other's way and not stealing each other's thunder, I guess. Mm-hmm. But yeah, not any real like pushback on anything. I was kind of really surprised that there wasn't, I guess, because this is, for a Thundercats book, it's a little bit darker, maybe than the other ones. Like Apex is a pretty brutal dude. He's not he's not one who necessarily sort of follows the rest of the Thundercats where they'll just beat him up and they're done. He likes to just kind of end things in some brutal ways. He's not afraid of getting in a fight. He's not afraid of ending fights. And there's some scenes in there that I wasn't sure would fly, but they're in there, so we're all good.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it definitely gives you a darker feel, especially in that universe. And it's really kind of a cool, breath of fresh air into that universe. Cause like, this is like a different character than we're used to seeing, even amongst, everything we've seen in the past, including classic villains and everything else. But like, it's just crazy. Like like I said, I was reading it and I was just like, all right, like this is awesome. It's like taking it to that next level that like you said already, the Old Man Logan, or even like the Spawn kind of level where you're
right.
upping the violence a little bit, you're upping the darkness, but it really works out.
Yeah, I don't think it's anything that breaks the universe either. Like it fits. This is a dude who's seen some stuff and he's been through some stuff, and what he's doing is very much a result of everything that he's been through and what he's had to endure. Again, I'm just trying to dance around it a little bit, but yeah. So I think logically it makes sense to me, and I was happy that I was kind of that Raph and I were given the space to do that story. They've been the folks at Dynamite and the Thundercats folks have been incredibly cool and understanding that sort of stuff.
Yeah,
that brings me to my next question. The Thundercats people in particular, this is a franchise that's been around since 1985, a beloved franchise. I mean, there's fans like me who grew up on it, who have kept it around, very much loving everything it is. While writing this, what was the biggest challenge you had, especially coming with the Thundercats people? Like obviously you said they were very understanding, but was there any like challenges in writing it, knowing whether it was wondering what the fan base is going to think, or if the people in charge were going to be like, maybe not that dark. You know what I mean?
I don't think there weren't really, like, I'll be honest, like kind of like once we kind of locked down what the story was going to be, I just kind of put on blinders and I get to work and I don't really consider, like, I'm really focused on the story that I want to tell and where we're going to go. And so, I had a pretty good idea going in what the story was going to be. I knew what we needed to get out of the book. I knew where I needed to leave it for Declan, because Apex is going to be a character that's going to play a major role in Thundercats going into this sort of second year of the series. So I think it was. And maybe it was just because we spent so much time planning it before I sat down to write. But it was like once I got behind the keyboard, it flowed pretty easily. It's still, it takes me like a week or so to write a script. It didn't flow so easy that it came out in a day or anything like that. But I think I had a pretty clear idea what we're doing, and so it was just a matter of executing it.
Absolutely. I mean, it comes off in the story, and we can't emphasize enough about everybody is really going to want to check this book out when it drops December 4th. And before I get to my next question, I'm throwing something out to the chat. I want to know everybody's favorite Thundercats. So super chat, definitely make sure you put in there. We definitely want to see who everybody's favorite is. And especially dealing with Thundercats, and we're seeing a lot more in comics these days with a push for going to the cartoons and bringing them from the small screen to the comic pages, like we've seen with Space Ghost from Dynamite and Thundercats, and even to a degree with G.I. Joe and the Energon universe over at Skybound, just to name a few. Like, what do you think is the biggest draw to bring these characters back? Like, why is now the perfect time for that?
I honestly, like, it's just nostalgia. We're all people of a certain age that want to see, the stuff we grew up with, hopefully modernized for a more mature or more modern audience. But it can't work on nostalgia alone. Like nostalgia is like the hook to get you through the door. But I think a lot of these books that you're talking about, they're doing a really good job of sort of going in and reinventing. It's not even reinventing. It's almost like giving it a polish, right? Taking it off the shelf and giving it a polish, making it feel modern without really losing the magic of what we were attracted to in the first place. You know, I think that like all those Energon books have done a really great job. Like the G.I. Joe books have done a great job. Thundercats has done a great job at it. So I think we're just seeing this like, like more like just readers and creators who've grown up with these things, who've really just wanted a chance to kind of tell stories in these universes. It's kind of interesting that there's so many coming out right now, but I think it's probably a good thing.
Well, you hit the nail on the head with that, with the fact that, it is, so some of us at a certain age, we grew up on these things. It's nice to see them back. And it's nice to see them. I say every issue of Thundercats, that I've reviewed, I've always said that they've done a great job on keeping the characters familiar while still expounding on A, the universe, and B, even the look of the characters. They're not exactly the same as they were in the cartoon. However, exactly which character it's supposed to be. So I really think that that's really like one of the things that you can tip your hat to, especially for Thundercats, but in a lot of these other properties as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, that's just something, like I say, just the nostalgia factor. Like I say, I mean, I grew up, watching Thundercats on the small screen, and then even to the comics, and to see like what's going on now, like it excites me as a reader at this age. And I love how you worded it too. Like it is like putting a polish on it and just really giving, a creative take on it that we haven't seen before. And you're really seeing it connect with the fans. Like I say, we always talk about Space Ghost, and I always use it as a prime example that you take a character that not too many younger readers, I should say, know about these days, and you're really telling some innovative stories with it. And we're now seeing that with Thundercats too. And just it really just seems like now is the perfect time for it. And just you're seeing the response, I think, is overwhelming for that.
Yeah, agreed. And I don't know why it's all happening at once. Maybe we're just all hitting that age. But I don't know. I'm down for it. I have all the Energon books, all the G.I. Joes, and Thundercats are all on my pull list. So clearly I'm a mark for it. So I'm no complaints.
I'm joining you. I'm joining you in that as well. I mean, it's hitting my pockets hard, but you know what? It's the best money I'm spending. Just want to throw that out there. But once again, I don't know. I guess I get the spoiler questions tonight without having spoilers. I don't want you to spoil anything. After, especially after being blessed to be me and Ken both reading it. And like I said, before you joined us, we were gushing about how much we love the book. So now that makes this question even more. Is there anything else you will be doing in the Thundercats universe that you can speak of? Is there a possibility you are writing anything else in the future in that universe?
Does Silverhawks count?
Well, yeah, we're going to jump into that.
Yeah, we have that.
Silverhawks, but I'm not going to say no. I would love to do some more stuff in the Thundercats universe. So it's just a matter of the right opportunity. Like if they want to do some Thundercats spin-offs, and I'm their guy.
And obviously, you kind of alluded to about Silverhawks. I know we had a couple of listeners in the chat mentioned about this. And coming out January 29th, Silverhawks is hitting the comic shops. What can you tell us about this series?
So I kind of mentioned it earlier, but I was one of those kids that came home. I was a latchkey kid, and I think it was like 4:00. It was Thundercats followed by Silverhawks.
Yep.
And 5 days a week, which is kind of insane to think of nowadays, or we get like an episode a week of something for a 10 episode season, as opposed to these 65 episode seasons that we got back then.
Yeah.
So anyway, I was a giant Silverhawks fan as well. I'm a big, in terms of writing, I do a lot of crime writing, comic wise. And when Dynamite got the license to do Thundercats, I think I already mentioned, I immediately started badgering Declan about Silverhawks. When Nate called me to offer me Apex, my first question was like, when are you guys doing Silverhawks? And then he called me a couple days later to ask, do you want to write Silverhawks? I'm like, yes. So I'm excited about it. I think it's a really cool, it's always kind of lived in the shadow of Thundercats, right?
Mm-hmm.
It came out after. It only lasted one season where Thundercats was 2. But I don't know. There's something about that sci-fi sort of space cops that was always intriguing to me. And so I pushed for it, and now we're doing it. And we're kind of pitching it as it's like Untouchables in space. Monstar, for those who watched the original cartoon, he's not like a sort of castle, some sort of castle monster. He's a galactic mobster. He's a mobster, and he has a whole crime cartel. And the Silverhawks are the task force that are put together to shut him down after he breaks out of prison. We're keeping that. That's all from the original. That's all very Untouchables, which I kind of love. It's a great movie. So yeah, we're kind of loosely following the cartoon with the comic. So we start with Monstar breaking out of prison. He's been there for 100 years. He does it on the night that Stargazer is supposed to be retiring from the Bedlama police department, but of course he stays to try and put Monstar back in prison because he's the one who originally put him there in the first place. And we do start putting together the Silverhawks team. Where we diverge a bit from the cartoon is we're going to spend time with the characters before they join the Silverhawks. Like in the cartoon, there's like a 30-second or 1 minute long episode or bit in the first episode where it's just one guy going, here's Quicksilver. He was a former lieutenant of the Federal Interplanetary Force number 8. Here's Steelheart. Like you get like a very, very brief, very concise little bit of backstory on them, but you never really get to see who they are. You never get to see who they are before that. So we're spending some time with the characters before they join the Silverhawks. We're going to spend a lot of time sort of expanding on things that are in the cartoon. The cartoon was a really great adventure of the day type story, but we never really got to see the sort of expanded universe beyond it. We heard about planets that got talked about. Bedlama, I don't even know if we really see Bedlama. There's just a lot of like empty planets in the original cartoon, and so we're going to spend some time going into Bedlama, the city, and the planet. We're going to spend time with both the villains and the protagonists to really sort of give a sense of who they are. I think that's important, not only just to make readers care about the characters, but also to show why they signed up with Silverhawks, why they would agree to go through an operation where their bodies are mostly metal now in order to fight this guy. So, we touch on how Monstar and his sort of crime, reign of terror has impacted their lives negatively. So it's a lot of diving a bit deeper into it, and still keeping it, I think, very exciting, big action set pieces per each issue, but lots more grounding of the characters and making them feel real. And I feel like I rambled on a really long time there.
No, by all means.
No.
Our chat has got a bunch of questions involving Silverhawks, right. So you woke them up a little bit. Chris from the Bada Boom podcast, shout out to Chris. I'm going to cast this one on the screen, Rich. He said, being that there's only one season, is it more freeing to expand the universe?
Yeah, absolutely. I think and the thing I touched on before is like the show dropped little nuggets, right? Like we say that Jonathan Quick, before he became Quicksilver, was a lieutenant in the Federal Interplanetary Force 8, which is such a mouthful. But we never see what that is. We don't know what that is. We get a sense of what it is from the name. We're definitely expanding. We're exploring Bedlama. We're exploring Stargazer's past. There is, and it's alluded to in the cartoon, there's a kind of a Silverhawks program before our Silverhawks. Condor is a character in the cartoon who is part of that. We're going to expand on that a bit more to show what, the first version of the Silverhawks looked like before we get ours. So yeah, there's a ton of expanding going on, a ton of more diving into the worlds, diving into the characters, et cetera, et cetera.
That's sounds like awesome. And once again, I'm like you. I was watching both of those back to back, so it's kind of a really cool thing to now see them, making such a resurgence in comics. And like I said, it seems like this is kind of like one of those dream projects for you. So is there any other dream projects you want to put out into the world that you hope
like
to work on? Because it worked. Like think about it, it worked for you in Silverhawks. I mean,
right?
You never know.
You know what? I don't know. Maybe if Marvel could give me a Speedball book, that's it may seem out of left field, but Speedball's my guy, and one day.
Hey, that would be pretty awesome, honestly.
Would you
Not
take
an answer I expected either?
Would you take it back to the New Warrior days, or would you take it back to his original appearance in the Amazing Spider-Man annual?
So it would like full disclosure, I have a 5-issue sort of outline that I've written, and it was this close to being a reality. And my take is largely, again, because I think being a person of a certain age who remembers when Speedball was brand new, when they launched him, and the promise was that Speedball was the next Spider-Man, right? Mm-hmm. He was going to be that big. They even brought Ditko back to design him, and he drew the original series, etc. And obviously he didn't become that. Speedball kind of became a joke. And the comic was actually largely about that, is about what it's like to break into the superhero scene and have all this promise and potential, and then wake up one morning to find out that you're not even a has-been, you were just a never was. You're just this guy that people dunk on all the time because your power is just to bounce. So I think it was a really fun take on him. It was a really just kind of this examination of like what it means to make a difference in the world, and how big of a difference do you have to make in order to like make a difference. Like, all these characters save the world, but sometimes, maybe just saving a singular person, or saving your neighborhood means just as much. Anyway, it was all very, very, very Speedball-y, very fun, but also kind of like a little bit sad.
Yeah, I remember that time too, because when he came out, I remember there's an Amazing Spider-Man annual. There was like a little buzz behind him, and then came out for that quick run series, and then he really took off with the New Warriors when that was the team of the 90s for Marvel.
Yeah, and
then I know I'm going to hear something in the chat because I already saw about when Speedball became Penance, and how things got real weird there, to put it mildly. But just to hear that, would you ever do a New Warriors series? Now I'm kind of throwing that at interested, because like I said, that's the team I know Speedball best from.
Yeah, I don't know. That was like it was a thing that I had conversations about in the past. It never really came to anything, but it's one of those things I think if I had the right take for it, I would do it. But that one, it's a tough one. We're talking about like reviving 80s cartoons into comics, but like New Warriors is one of those ones that seems so tied to the 90s.
Yeah.
And so it's so of its time that it's really difficult to bring it back as a team, but I don't know, never say never. I'm sure that there's an approach that I'm just not smart enough to figure out, but it just feels like such a 90s book that it's almost impossible to get around it.
No, listen, wait another decade, just like the 80s nostalgia. 90s nostalgia will catch back up, and then we were just ahead of our time.
Right. That's fingers crossed.
Yeah, I could definitely see that too, because like I say, the New Warriors is such a 90s book. Yeah, it is tough to recapture the magic, but like we've seen like the different iterations with the Titans in DC, and how they keep coming back and whatever.
Yeah,
in that manner too. So that's why I say, like, especially when you mentioned Speedball, like that is a name that really doesn't get enough credit and mention and with the fandoms a little bit. So yeah, that's an interesting take that you got for a story. Like I'm very interested to check that out. So fingers crossed we get to see.
All right, talk to whoever you got to talk to get it to happen. I'm right here.
Yeah, and in fact, yeah, somebody posted in the chat, Night Thrasher just had a comeback, so who knows? That is true. I mean, that's the one thing when you leave a legacy like that, and that's one thing you see, especially too, kind of tying it back to the Thundercats and Silverhawks. Like when you have, that impact of a moment with the characters, and now you get to bring them back and really just have some fun with it. It just takes you back to why you became a fan of them in the first place, and like how the feeling is now that you get to introduce them to a whole new fan base that really has never heard of them before, and like how does that feel doing?
Yeah, that feels that's exciting, and I think that's part of why we wanted to go back and really explore who these characters are and take our time putting the team together. Like I think I've mentioned in some other interviews, the Silverhawks team doesn't fully come together till issue 3 or 4. Like we're bringing each character in slowly, and I think part of that is I think that the old fans will hopefully enjoy learning more about these characters or finding out more about their backstories. But I think it's a great way to sort of onboard new fans, like to really attach them to these characters that we have so much attraction to. I'm in love with Quicksilver. That we have so much, love for, like these old characters. So I think that's part of why we're doing it, is to hopefully bring that new generation of readers into, because it's been. There was a Silverhawks comic, I think, that lasted a bit longer than TV series, but it's been like 37 years since there's been Silverhawks anything. And so, there's going to be readers who have no idea what the book is and maybe just picking it up because it's got a cool cover. So, fingers crossed, we bring in a whole new generation of Silverhawks fans, and this series lasts for 37 years itself.
I will already say, like, just from what you've been telling about it and those covers too, and like anytime you have a Geraldo Borges cover, I'm definitely picking that up. So, I think the fans are going to be excited about this and, really run with this. And like I say, everything that Dynamite's had coming out involving Thundercats and this, I'm sure is going to be a big hit, much like Thundercats Apex. And definitely we will have to have you back on Turn a Page after Silverhawks #1 comes out, so we can go full spoiler and deep dive into that.
Perfect. Yeah.
All right. So that being said, any final push? Like we always give everybody a final chance to really sell the books that we're talking about. So if we're at the comic shops next week for December 4th, Thundercats Apex, why should they make sure that this is on the top of their pull list?
Look, if they're reading Thundercats already, this book is going to impact Thundercats for the rest of the year. So you want to get into the ground floor. You want to know what's happening. I think it's probably one of the biggest mysteries in the book. When we reveal kind of one of the biggest mysteries, I think, in Thundercats so far. It's a doozy. So yeah, if you're a Thundercats fan, you have to. You don't have a choice.
Yeah,
just pick it up, put it on your pile.
Listen, I can second that. As like I said, a lifeline Thundercats fan. Like I said, I have been keeping up, obviously reviewing the Thundercats line, and Declan is doing a great job with that. And of course, they teased the character. We didn't know. Now reading Apex, I will tell you, even if you're not a Thundercats fan, I know earlier somebody had mentioned, is this a good place to jump in? Yes, actually it is, because you can go back and catch up on some stuff. But I really feel like once you know where this character is, and you can obviously know that this is going to be a big impact going into the next year of Thundercats, you're kind of like, this is a spot where you really want to jump on board. Then go back and read, or try to catch up. Trust me, Thundercats is a great book to begin with, but Thundercats Apex blew me away. Like completely. Was not like, I've already told Ken I've got dibs on reviewing it. Obviously, with doing Thundercats, I'm like pulling that card. Like I already do the book, so I should be able to do this one as well. But after reading it, I'm like, oh boy, this is something I can't wait to talk about. And I can't wait for people to be able to talk spoilers, because this is the hardest time I've ever had doing any interview or doing anything where I'm excited, where I can't just come out and be like, and this is what happens, and it's going to blow you away. But I also want everybody out there. It's not underselling. When you get through this book and you find out what's happening, this is huge. This is not like one of those ones that's going to let you down. It's amazing.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Perfect.
I think the only spoiler we can say is this will actually be the lead review next week on nerdinitiative.com starting at 9 a.m. So That is how much we at Nerd Initiative think about this book. It's going to be the lead review of at least 35 reviews coming out that day. So it's an exciting book to go check out. You want to make sure you get to your LCS. Yeah, I hope you had your pre-orders made for it. If not, make sure you get Silverhawks lined up at the LCS because you don't want to miss that when that drops in January. So you want to make sure you have these books lined up because trust us, this is not us just being nostalgia fans. These are ones that really are going to stand out. They're going to be what you're talking about with your fellow fans online and at the shops about. They're really going to be delivering, and they're going to be worthwhile additions to your collection. Ed, thank you so much for taking the time out to talk with us, and we're definitely going to have you back on to talk some Silverhawks.
Awesome.
We have to deep dive into some spoilers and maybe even go into a little speedball lore. I just, like I said, that opened the door for me. So now I'm all in about that.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate it, guys.
Absolutely. Thank you. Rich, thank you for stepping in today. And obviously we got a big show coming this week for Wrestling Night Live. So if you want to find out what's going on with Rich and myself, you got to go to the home of pop culture positivity. Nerdinitiative.com is where you go. Links to the YouTube channel where we have exclusive content dropping, especially if you're a Ghost Machine fan. There's a special interview dropping in, let's say within the next couple hours. We'll just put it out there. So you want to make sure you subscribe, hit the thumbs up to let the boss know that you like what you're seeing here, and definitely spread the word because we have a big 2024 still left with the Cheers These Awards and so much more, and an even larger 2025 on the horizon. And that being said, thank you for checking out another edition of Turn a Page, and we'll end it like we always do. When you're at the comic shop and you have a great issue in your hands, such as Thundercats Apex by Dynamite Comics, and you see somebody struggling to find something, hand yours off to them. Tell them turn a page. We'll see you next time.
And I'm out.